real quick. All right, so either of you feel free to hop in whenever you want. If one of you want to go first each time, or if you just kind of want to answer it, however you feel comfortable answering it, that's perfectly fine with me. So first, let's introduce yourself. So what school do you teach at, and how long have you taught for?
I'm Ashleigh Braxton. I am at Patty Elementary in Prince William County, and this is my 4th year. And so in Prince William County, it's K through 5.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm hoping this is working. I've actually never used Zoom before. But I'm Jarrett McKay. I teach at Herndon Middle School, 8th grade, and that's in Fairfax County. This is my 3rd year teaching.
Awesome. That's so awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that. So what was your path into teaching physical education, and was there anyone who influenced your decision to be a teacher?
I originally, my first degree was in history. And then I was a student athlete. I started playing basketball at Pitt, and then I finished at George Mason. And then I took some time to find myself, figure out what I wanted to do. And with that, I started subbing, and then I became a teacher assistant at Hilton High School, which is in Prince William County. And I was working with special education. And during that time, I loved when we would do PE. That was my favorite part. So then I decided while I was coaching high school basketball, I might as well go back to school and do something that I loved, which was PE. And so during that time, I just started taking my classes, and I enjoyed my time the entire time. Jarrett and I had a majority of our classes together. And so really my part was just kind of enjoying PE with special education, and then going back to school at Mason, which since I was local worked very nicely. So that was kind of my path going back into school and get into a physical education degree.
Awesome. I'm actually from the Prince William County area, so I know like all the schools that you're talking about, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, again, it was great having, we had a lot of classes together, and we had a mixed group there. We had people like me. This was my first major, my original, but we had quite a few that was their second or third major. They were doing a career changer program. As for my path, I would say that, as a student, I always enjoyed PE. I mean, that was my favorite class, just because I got to move and I got to get away from the desk. And then as I got older, I just wanted to share, my enjoyment or passion for sports, working together, exercising, teamwork, working towards goals. And I enjoyed it most in a physical education type of environment. The influence part, I think, is just more of a personal part. It's not that I was like super close with my PE teachers. I mean, one of them was my coach, but I will say that my mom, when I would go home to visit or a call, I will say that she told me very frequently to switch my major, not to become a teacher. And some people may tell you to do the same, but if you love what you do and you have enjoyed class so far at school, keep doing it. It's definitely not easy, but I would say that's for my influence. It was more of a kind of a personal choice.
That's awesome. Yeah, we talk about this a lot, how people are always like, why are you doing PE? Like, that's not a real job. And I'm like, I don't care what you have to say, because I enjoy it, and that's all that matters. And I know we all feel the same way too. But yeah, I definitely get that. So what is your favorite grade to teach? I know you guys kind of talked about what you're teaching right now, but what is your favorite grade to teach if you had to choose one, and why?
I would choose virtually. In person, it would be 5th grade, but virtually, it's been 2nd grade. So it's different. I think it might be my schedule. Virtually, by the time I get 5th grade, it's the end of the day, so they're exhausted. And so not as many come, and they're exhausted. In person, it would be 5th grade, but virtually, I get 2nd grade first thing in the morning, and they are showing up. And if something is wrong with my Zoom, boy, does my email show it. And they fully participate. So virtually 2nd grade is the best, but normally if it's a normal school year, 5th grade, I think, because they're right close to where Jarrett is teaching in their middle school, and they're on that cusp. So the interactions are a little bit different, but right now I'm enjoying second grade a lot because they're socially developing. So the conversations based off of what I'm teaching right now, they're able to engage a lot. So I'm enjoying kind of that change. And then kindergarten is just challenge all the time. It doesn't matter if it's in person or virtually, but the beauty of them is you get to see that growth throughout the year, and you get to say, man, that class has changed so much. So I think elementary is fun because you get to see so much growth throughout an entire year and then throughout an entire elementary career. So that's just a little bit extra information than what you asked, but I think that's what's cool about elementary.
That's okay. Extra information is always appreciated. I love hearing it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, she's definitely privy in the sense that, you know, as an elementary teacher, you get to see those kids grow up. And I always, you know, start with talking to the kids to make connections to as many teachers as you can in middle school, just because you don't have as much of an opportunity, especially in PE. And I'm like, you know, coming from an elementary, unless you've moved around a lot, which, you know, in this area, you know, kids do that. But I'm hoping that you have a strong connection with whoever your PE teacher was, because there's a chance that you may have had that teacher for up to 6 years. You know, if you think about it, how much time you spend with with an elementary school PE teacher is fascinating. Being a middle school teacher, in my first year, I taught 7th and 8th grade. Last year and this year, I'm only 8th grade, so I don't have as much experience as Ashleigh does with regards to different ages. I'm primarily that middle school age group. But of the two, you know, other than student teaching, when I was at elementary and high, of the two that I've been working with, I enjoy the 8th grade more. Maybe it's just because my experience with 8th grade has been solid so far. My first year of teaching was a nightmare personally, and it was a little tough being at 2 schools in 2 different grades. So maybe that makes my decision a little biased, but you know, last year was great. This year, it obviously has its challenges, but I enjoy working with, I would say, 8th grade so far to this point. It's a fun age and a fun grade to teach.
Good to know. So what would you guys say that is your typical physical education class like when you teach? And could you talk about like the virtual experience and the in-person experience?
In person, I start the year off rules. It's very rules heavy, particularly with kindergarten, trying to introduce them to your space. And then of course you have new students that have never been to your school. So introducing them to your space. For instance, if they came from a different school in the county, maybe they don't have 2 gyms. At my school, I'm very lucky to have 2 gyms. So my partner at my school, he has a gym, I have a gym. Sometimes we swap, but they maybe came from a school where they only had 1 gym, so that's new for them. So introducing to the space, introducing to rules, and that's the first couple weeks, but that doesn't stop. That's ongoing throughout the entire year. Do a lot of cooperation at the beginning of the year, and that goes beautifully with our SOL objectives for K through 5. So a lot of cooperation in a personal, in-person setting. And so that's how we typically kick off the year, because that also, in their classroom, they're getting to know each other, of who's in their class this year and things like that, and a new student coming in. But they play a lot of getting to know each other's names, and they do a lot of classroom growth and development. But we do that a lot in PE with problem solving. We like to do different Mission Impossible games, and that goes with sportsmanship, that goes with etiquette, integrity, and again, that falls into our SOL objectives. So that goes for K through 5. That lasts a month, and it can be draining, K through 5 of teaching, because you feel like you're doing the same thing every day in a rotation, and you are, and that's nice sometimes because you come to work every day, you know what you're doing, but it can be a toll because you come to work every day, you know what you're doing, and it is the same thing. But at the same time, it's not, because every class is different. Every day is different. But that's kind of how our planning goes. Our county provides a glance at the year that you can adjust. So at least you have this kind of outlook of how you want to plan your year. Virtually, that has changed for me. I've tried to introduce my students to sports that they don't know about. So I start my class off with a sports clip that's playing when I let them into Zoom. The reason I do that is kind of what we were doing right now, that 5 minutes where we were waiting for people to come. You have that, we're waiting, everyone's kind of sitting quietly. You know, for us, it's easy, we can work. You know, I was reading through emails that I hadn't had a chance to do. But for a 6-year-old, it's like, when are we going to start? What are we going to do? So for me, they've got a video to watch, and then that lets me, when that video is done, talk. But that gives that 5-minute gap of students to roll in from wherever they're coming from, maybe their classroom teacher, maybe it was bathroom and water, and they've got a sport that they actually all voted on at the beginning of the school year with a flip grade of saying, hey, Ms. Braxton, I hope that you show cricket. I hope that you show curling. I hope that you show ballet, gymnastics. And it's cool to see what they kind of are interested in. And then I can connect it to, well, your heart is a muscle, and how do you make it stronger? Exercise. And then I can tie in all of our SOL objectives. So I've changed the way my lessons start than I used to. You know, I used to start with, they come in the gym and it's a warm up and we get going right away. Now I've got to allow for coming into Zoom takes a little bit longer. There's logging in drama. So I'm doing it a little bit different than I would do coming in from the gym. And then of course I get right into exercising once most kids have logged in, but I'm trying to do things differently, and it allows for conversation from the students of, well, my mom used to play lacrosse, or my dad used to play lacrosse, or my grandma's favorite sport is badminton, and we have a set when we go visit her. And those are dialogues that I used to not have with them in the gym that, you know, I don't know if I'll be able to continue once we fully are in person, but I could do something special now in this unusual time. So that's kind of how I've been doing in person versus virtual, starting of class and my planning. The sports were not me, those were the students.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I think it's, with virtual, you get like the positive and the negatives. Like, yeah, we're not in class and we're not able to be physically active together. But even with PETES, we've seen a difference in the involvement with the members. It's a lot easier to just sit at home and log into something rather than commute to campus or try to find the time to make it to the meetings or stuff like that. So there are definitely the positive and negatives, and I can definitely see how that would affect like the teaching too. So I'm super thankful to have the experience to do virtual, but I just hope that we're back in person sooner rather than later. Jarrett, would you like to share now?
I'll say you speak for at least most of the PE teachers that I've worked with and talked to about getting back in person. I mean, it's any kind of challenges you're going to go through, especially your first year. It may be miserable at times, but it's going to make you a better teacher. I could see in myself the growth from year 1 to 2 was, first from a self-assessment standpoint, was just unbelievable how much more confident I was. And this is definitely going to help you and everyone else that's getting ready to graduate and move on. I'll say that in person, a typical lesson, at least for our school, I mean, even if it's the same grade level, 7th and 8th grade can change from school to school. And Ashley's seen that, and you've probably seen that. It can change depending on, you know, what the teachers want to do, how long those teachers have been there, what the kids are like. For me, we bring them all into the gym for each teacher that has a class, and we have them in attendance lines. We take attendance first thing, try to get that into the office. We never want to make the attendance ladies mad at us. Get that out of the way, send them to the locker rooms, and let them do their thing in there. Try to kick them out as quickly as possible, or else you just lose track of time. So much time is spent in locker rooms, you don't even realize it until you're actually, in that environment. We do a walk and talk, simply just to get them moving, gives them that chance to talk, socialize, and the main reason is just to give time for all the kids to come out, give all the teachers a time to get out of the locker room from where they're having to supervise. And then once we're all out there, we'll generally separate into our different spaces and do some type of warm-up. Sometimes we combine classes for a warm-up for a game. I've been experimenting with, keeping the same warm-up routine over the period of a quarter to give the kids a sense of routine. That works with some. Some they hate it. They hate doing the same thing 2 days in a row. So it just depends. You add a game, you add stretches, it's just different. Depends on the class again. then we'll do our main activity, try to save the bulk of the time for the main activity in the lesson. And then before you know it, it's time to send them back in. Obviously, that's a major change now with the virtual, and I feel like I'm starting to come along. I always start with some type of community builder, like Ashleigh said, maybe a video, maybe it's questions. I've been using Sporkle, just things that sometimes, and in fact most of the cases, aren't even related to school at all. It's basically just a chance to get to know the kids, because we're not able to do that as well virtually, but you learn so much from them by talking to them about stuff, and giving them trivia, and just doing things that are fun and not even related to school, just opening up the lesson with that. And then we enter the lesson and try to include opportunity for engagement, pair deck, stuff like that, forums, Jamboards, anything you can have to where the kids aren't just sitting there listening to you talk, some type of assessment. And then for us, with 80-minute blocks, I try to implement at least 30 minutes at the end of each class to say, all right, log off of Blackboard, get out in front of your computer and do something active, whether it's taking a walk, yoga, jogging, walking your pet, anything that gets you moving. And then we've been doing activity logs to try to encourage them to move. And the feedback we've got from parents about using brain breaks and allowing them time away from their computer is unbelievable, because they're in front of their computer all day, and we're the only class that they can rely on to get them moving, and a chance to step away from that computer for a little bit. So I definitely take advantage of that. That would be the biggest differences, I think, between in-person and virtual for me.
Yeah, I think that's something that's super important, is just making sure that the students are getting away from the screen. Even as college students, like, we spend so much time on our phones, we spend so much time, just virtually in our classes, or even just doing our homework. So I think that's super important. And I love that you make sure that they get up and get outside, or at least get active in some form. So that's awesome. Next thing is, can you discuss what the virtual experience has been like for you? The biggest thing with that is, how do you keep track of the accountability? I feel like as future teachers, we're not quite there yet. We want to make sure that our students are actually doing the activities. With our virtual experiences, we've seen teachers have like a 40-minute lesson, so they'll do 20 minutes of instruction and explaining the assignments, and then they'll let them get off and do the activity for 20 minutes. How do you make sure that your students are actually doing those activities?
So I have a similar setup. So I'll do my video, and then right after that, I will do an activity exercise. Sometimes I'll do another sport and then another activity exercise. It depends on, for instance, when I did a throwing lesson, I had a recording of me throwing, and then that's when I had students leave. So in my Canvas page, because Prince William County is using Canvas, there's a recording of me throwing. Students were able to log off of my Zoom, go watch that throwing lesson, and then post themselves throwing. So the accountability is they have to record themselves throwing and then post a video of them throwing to me for me to grade. So that's how I can assess. And so the only way I can assess is a recording of them, just like I would assess in the gym, visually, teacher feedback, things like that. The way I'm doing it, and it's ongoing and developing, like Jarrett said, we are changing and trying new things all the time. It's not perfect. It's just like teaching in person. It's always changing. Nothing is perfect. But the nice thing about Canvas is, you show your throwing, you're missing some cues. I can give you feedback so you can post a new video of your throwing. And it's like I would give feedback in the gym of how to improve your throwing. So that's the accountability of this is for your grade. But I've also been able to do a little bit more health than I normally do. So I've taught bones, given a bones quiz and things like that. So that's the accountability for students, is to post those assignments. It's a little bit more of a challenging for a kindergartner, but I reduce how many assignments I provide to them. So that's how I'm trying to do it in the elementary level.
Gotcha. And do you require them to have their cameras on? I know that's a big thing is some teachers do and some teachers don't. The most of the people that I've seen don't require them because they want to make sure that their students feel comfortable. But do you require them?
I do. The students that don't have their cameras on, I know ahead of time, individual students, why they don't. So that information has been provided to me either directly by the parent or by the classroom teacher. But our county has said cameras need to be on, and our principal has said cameras need to be on. So I do. The only grade level that's an issue is 4th and 5th grade. And once I say, county mandated cameras need to be on, then you just see bloop, 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 and then they're back on. But occasionally cameras are off because of streaming. So when you start to stream a video, the cameras will go off for some of our students because it'll help it stream better with the bandwidth. And then once I'm done streaming a video, they'll put them back on. So our school policy is cameras are on unless there's information provided by a parent or guardian.
Okay, good to know. Jarrett, would you like to share now?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm glad that she has a different take on this so that we're not basically saying the same thing. It's going to be more beneficial to you, I think, because with the accountability part, for us at least, and this will feed into that next question about the cameras. I mean, if I'm being honest, the accountability is honor system for the most part for them. It's difficult. In person, it can be difficult too, but generally that relationship is easier to develop. And a lot of times you can get more out of them, but speaking from the Herndon population, just with the struggles that our kids have to face at home, and just our general, and it just depends on the area, but our kids, it's difficult to track because we don't require cameras. I'm not sure if the county does. Our school definitely doesn't. I might have had 2 people turn on their camera all year. And a lot of it is because of that background. I know that Google has a thing where it blocks out the background, which would be awesome. We're thinking about switching to that, but our department uses Blackboard Collaborative. So we don't use cameras. And really, even when it comes down to the activity logs, or use the next 30 minutes to do activity, exercise, as a teacher and as someone talking to you, I say, that's awesome. That's what we need to do. In reality, for accountability, it's some of them might do it, some of them might not. And don't stress over it. And when you're in person, when you get to health or whatever, with work, don't stress yourself out. It's just, there's only so much we can do as a teacher as long as we're giving our best effort. The kids that want to do it will, and the kids that don't. And there are some that can't do it for whatever reason. Our attendance is based on student login. And so back to the camera piece, they might log in, and you might go through a Pear Deck or some type of interactive activity, and you might not even know that student exists. I tell them sometimes, just joking, I'm like, okay, here I am talking to a wall again, or my zombie's still there, something to kind of provoke a laugh or something. But I mean, some kids might log on and walk away. Unfortunately, I'm a little jealous of Ashleigh just because they get that piece of the cameras, but they're starting to get a little better with the chat. And then grading for us, with again the accountability, we're supposed to be pretty lenient with those, with deadlines and retakes and the 50% policy. So sometimes it's tough, but it can definitely be done. And the biggest thing about it is whatever you do just to sell it. And that was what we always we're taught at Mason, is even with stuff that might seem difficult to them, or if they're having challenge, if we sell it, that's going to encourage them to do it more. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that some counties are requiring cameras and some aren't, because I didn't know that Prince William County was requiring it. I observed at I'm blanking on the school, Fredland Middle School in Woodbridge, and they didn't have to have their cameras on. So when I taught that class, it was kind of difficult to try to get the students to interact with us. So that's basically why I had that question, because it's just making sure that they're doing the activities and making sure that they're there. It's something that we can't necessarily control, but I think we just have to try our best to make sure that like you said, sell it to them. So I think that's really good tips. Ashleigh, did you want to add something?
Yeah, that's where you'll learn in your teaching career. That's called site-based management. So no matter where you teach, that is called site-based, where you will you'll hear about one school, they do something one way, another school does something another way, and that will be throughout your entire career. Everything will be site-based. And sometimes that's going to be great. You're going to be like, I love my school. The decision here is amazing. And then sometimes you're going to go, site-based is the worst because our site has decided to do this and another school has decided to go this path, and I wish we had made a different decision. And so it's all site-based, and sometimes it's based on the population of your school. That lower income population, maybe the decision is cameras aren't a big deal because the lower income population, the kind of environment behind them, that's why cameras aren't a big deal, because the environment behind the student isn't ideal. But another site-based says that's our population isn't low income, so we're not really worried about that. Cameras need to be on. My school is mixture. We have trailer park, we have high-end income, but we highly encourage for cameras to be on in appropriate environments. Our Prince William County provided backgrounds that can be changed in Zoom. For instance, Greg has the Mason logo. Students can do a Prince William County logo behind. And so they can do that and things like that to change the background. We have kids that are in daycares, so their background is a bit chaotic, but it's nice to see their face. If you're a new student or kindergarten, I've never seen your face. And so I taught in person today for the first time with kindergarten. So their face was cut off with a mask, and so was mine, but just having seen their face for the past couple of months, I was able to get their names quickly. It was only 5 kids, but I knew their names because of those times that I got to see their face over Zoom. It made a huge difference. So not having been able to see their faces on the camera on Zoom, that would have made it hard for even just 5 kids. And so it's site-based, though, was the whole point of, you'll see in your careers, site-based will come into play for everything.
Right. Yeah, it's just super interesting to see how every school does something different. So, but I did not know that that's like the terminology of that. So I'm definitely going to remember that. But thank you for sharing.
Hey, can I ask a question real quick, Jessica?
Yeah, of course.
Just out of curiosity, what's your guys' class size around?
It varies from each grade level. So first grade is very, very small. Their class sizes could be 15 to 20, but third grade is huge. They're like 25 to 30. They're ginormous. But now with being virtual, parents got to choose. So today in person for kindergarten, I had about 5 students and the rest were virtual, which was a unique management today. I didn't know who to teach to be honest. My body naturally started to turn towards the kids in person, but my brain started to say, Ashleigh, you have kids on Zoom. Don't forget about them. And so I had this push and pull feeling, / I have a, welcome to Burger King headset on my head. And I had a mask on, so I'm breathing heavy. And I had this fancy Wally camera up that was on top of a TV. And then I kept looking at my computer thinking that my camera was here, but it was actually up here and I wasn't looking at them. And it felt like a disaster because it was. And I left giggling because there's nothing else I can do about it. So class sizes vary for grade levels depending if you choose elementary in your future. And there's going to be some grade levels you're like, man, they're so small. And then other grade levels you're going to be like, they're huge. I don't know what to do with them. They're everywhere. Like you start moving in games and you're like, there's no space. They're everywhere. And then you're going to have other grade levels. You're going to be like, look at all this room. They move. They don't touch each other. It's the best thing in the world. And that depends on if your elementary has 2 gyms. So that varies with elementary. I can say that much. Jarrett can tell you more about middle school.
It also varies. I mean, throughout my career, short career, 3 years. The highest number I've had in a class is, I think my first year had 44 in one of my periods. And then the same exact year, seventh period, I had 18, as much sense as that makes. So it literally varies. It could vary from one period to the next, whether you have 20 kids or 40. And it's fun.
Wow, that's crazy. That's a lot and then a little, it seems like. um, let's see. The next question is, could you guys discuss how you plan your lessons and like just discuss like what you plan, how you know what to plan, what's that process look like for you? Like at Mason, we have the Mason lesson plan. Do you guys still follow that? Or do you just kind of, I know one teacher, he's like, I just kind of write it down sticky notes and go with it. So just kind of discuss that process.
I do not use the Mason lesson plan any longer. I was very good at it when I was at Mason, but there's no time. I don't have time to use it or want to put in the details of it. I think it's very good at Mason to use it because it makes you think through the process of it. But I think when you get so good at it, your brain does all of that really quickly. Like you just you think through all those things. Like I said, Prince William County for PE teachers, they kind of map out the year. You can follow it or not. You know, they kind of say, you know, August and September is cooperative lessons, and then you can move into overhand throwing, and then so on and so forth. And then from there, I could follow that and then break it down myself. And for lessons, I've got sticky notes. I have a notebook beside me that is, if someone tried to read it, they would think it's that movie A Beautiful Mind, where like, what did she try and do in there? And it's just me taking notes. It's me. I've got SOL objectives all over the place, written all over in this notebook. And you kind of just sticky notes, you plan it out and you just run with it. And then I got installed in both gyms, giant whiteboards. So then that way I could write 4 and 5 are doing these SO objectives and blah, 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 you know, 3 and 2 are doing this and K and 1 are doing this. And then that kind of becomes my lesson plan right there. I know what's going on. I can write their cues and it's there and I've got it written in a notebook. You know, I want to type it up and I want to do that. But the amount of time I'm on my computer is so small. Well, it used to be, you know, it was 20 minutes a day. And then I'm teaching, I'm on my feet, I'm on the go and I'm exercising. And then that was it. And then I have my duties in the morning, my duties in the afternoon, and then that's it. So I don't really write that much. It's little sticky notes in my notebook and that's kind of it. And then I don't use it the next year. I feel like the next year is like a brand new year for me. I might get new equipment. We bought a parachute that literally takes up the entire gym. So that makes you want to go, well, I don't want to do what I did last year. I want to use this giant parachute that literally takes up the entire gym. So you just kind of get new equipment sometimes and you want to do something new. I know there are some teachers that have more experience and they've got it mapped out to a T. That's what they do. I get too bored easily for that. So I'd like to do something fresh each year. But I plan out with my partner. Him and I will say, like, we're doing soccer right now. I'll focus on kicking and striking. He'll focus on dribbling. So that's a nice thing about elementary is we can take one sport, 2 different skills. There's 2 grades right there in the quarter. And that's the beauty, I think, of elementary, of having a partner. You can do it that way. And now you've got 2 grades and that helps fill up your grade book.
Jarrett, would you like to share now?
Yeah, it changes from school to school. I mean, I'll say that as for planning, especially now whenever that CLTs are almost the most important part of your year is meeting. Ashleigh with, I guess, would be one teacher for me, would be whoever else is teaching in 8th grade. So it's a team of 4 right now for me. But I don't really use a specific lesson plan template. I will say that this year I filled out my actual first lesson plan of the year because my administrator had me under observation today and emailed me before class saying, hey, can you send me the link to your observation? I was like, sure, let me get it to you. I'm eating my lunch. So I typed up a lesson plan under the school format. And again, that's that site-based thing. At Herndon, we have our own, the school has lesson plans that we're supposed to pretty much follow that. Like, this is the model, the opening, warm-up, self instruction, whatever it is. I can't even memorize it because I don't use it, but I typed it up and sent it. Now, that being said, and Ashleigh mentioned this too, how it just depends on what you're comfortable with. Writing it on sticky notes, typing it up, talking about creating a Google Drive for your team. It just depends. Make sure you have something down, because you need to be able to go back and look at that and see, what worked. Did you not have time for this? And you can use that in the future, especially with health. Now, I'm blessed because with health, the lesson plans are on the county's website. I do change them because some of them are so boring it puts me to sleep as I read them. So I will change them and add my own activities. But the standards are there. The lesson, the PowerPoint slideshow, there's it's a skeleton with the information that I'll change up on my own. But it's a starting point. So with regards to just doing actual lesson plans, if I'm typing up a full one, it's probably because I'm being observed. Other than that, like she said, time is just the most precious thing, and you really don't have time for that to be.
And it's site-based for your observations. Like when I was getting like full-blown observed, my lesson plan was as bare minimum as it got. Like, it's today's date, we're doing this warm-up, we're doing this, and there it was. But it's, again, site-based. Your principal could want what Jarrett's principal, what Herndon is doing, a detailed. My principal and assistant principal didn't want that. They just wanted to come in, they wanted to observe, they record it, and they fill out the observation. But so it's completely and totally site-based. And now in Zoom, they just literally pop into your Zoom. Well, I have to let them in, but they show up at your Zoom, they observe for a bit, and then they disappear. But I will say, what observations, don't stress them. Like, what's going to go great is going to go great, and what's going to go bad is going to go bad. And really all you can do is adjust on the fly like you would with a normal lesson. And then it is going to be what it's going to be. I got observed and it was going great. And then a first grader out of the blue said, "Miss Braxton, what's your favorite movie?" I don't know why. It wasn't on class topic. And I rolled with it. Like, things are just going to happen that don't make any sense, no matter what level you are teaching. Doesn't matter if it's elementary or middle school, things are going to happen. But the more you work yourself up about it, that's when you make mistakes. So when you just teach it and you go, yeah, there's that person that doesn't normally show up in my gym standing there and recording, and you just ignore them, then that's when they go the best. So I know observations wasn't on there, but I know when you student teach and things like that, you're going to get observed. Miss Norton might show up. She's going to show up and she's going to observe you. It's the same feeling you get when you get observed by your principal. You just ignore them, and then you're done, and you just keep moving on, because what's going to happen is going to happen. Like, you can't prevent a student from doing what they're going to do. All you can do is react the way that you normally would with teaching. So that's just a sidebar.
Right. I'm glad you guys touched on observing. I didn't even think to ask about that, but I'm glad you guys touched on that. Is there anything specific that you guys wish you knew about teaching before you started teaching full-time?
All the extra, when you apply for a job, it says other assigned duties. So it has in your job application, other assigned duties. I didn't know there was going to be so many other assigned duties that were going to come with my job, like Kids Hurt Challenge. And then I forgot about field day. And then I forgot that, there might be a school assembly that was going to get thrown on my plate. Like, those are the other things that you just go, I thought I was just going to teach PE. Like, I knew I was going to have bus duty in the morning, maybe cafeteria duty, bus duty in the afternoon. It's all those things that I just totally forgot. If you are a PE teacher in Prince William County, your team is the encore team. So your planning, oddly enough, is going to be with music teacher, art teacher, librarian, and maybe your ITC, so the technology coach. It's very strange. You adjust to it, but that's something that I didn't even think about. I wish I've grown into this person, but I wish that someone told me it's okay to defend your job, you know, defend what you believe in. When you're told to do something you don't believe in, it's okay to say to your principal, no, you know, or yes, my job is important and I'm going to defend it. And it's not always easy, not always fun, but defend your job. Defend the respect of your job or your team, your encore team, or, you know, for Jarrett, he's a team of 4. And so I think those are the things that you're not going to learn at Mason, but you'll learn through experience. So be proud of your job, defend it, and doesn't have to be in an unprofessional way, but you can professionally say, you know, hey, what I do is important, what I do matters. And I've learned that through experience, and I do that. I do have a principal that's sometimes a pain, but he will sit there and he will listen to what I have to say. And he knows that I'm passionate and fired up at times, but he will listen to it and then he'll grow from it. And so I'm fortunate in that sense. But be proud of what you've chosen to do as a career. And when you have to, you defend it and you say, I'm important and I matter. What I do makes them healthy. What I do makes their brains ready to learn when they go back to the classroom. So respect it. So, and again, you can do that professionally. So I think that's something that I wish that I knew and comprehended, that there's so many other people like me that are doing what I'm doing. So I'm not alone. And I've learned that. And so I hope that you walk away knowing that too and feeling that.
For me, it's kind of similar. I would just say how to deal with certain situations that you have no idea of what to predict. So you're not going to learn it at Mason, unfortunately. For example, I wish I would have known exactly how to react, when a student in my 4th period bent down to get something and a pocket knife fell out of his shirt and he had drugs in his book bag. Like, they're not going to teach you that at Mason. So it's something you'll learn. Again, it's just that question, it's just everything that happens that comes with experience. I wish I would have known how to deal with everything that I've dealt with that I was never brought up at school at all. That's impossible to predict, but with experience, you'll get it. So there's no way of knowing how some things happen. You just go with the flow. It'll be all right.
Yeah, I think that's something that, at least for me, there are so many things like behavior issues. It's hard for our professors to teach us about how to deal with behavior issues because we're all college students, so we're not going to act out. Or even like just teaching our peers. It's so much easier to teach our peers because they do what we tell them to do. But teaching like a 1st grade class or even like a middle school class, they're going to do what they want to do. So it's definitely the experience of teaching your peers versus teaching like students or knowing how to deal with those behavior problems. That's something that I'm super nervous about when it comes to teaching, because I don't know how to exactly do that, if that makes sense. So if you guys want to touch on like what do you do with behavior issues, or like how do you discipline your students without making them hate you or doing it in a bad way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not like there's a flow chart to be like, this is the time to walkie an admin. This is the time to walkie a counselor. Like you go sometimes like, oh, maybe I should have walkied. Maybe I shouldn't. Like you don't know sometimes of when do I walkie for somebody, when should I not walkie for somebody. And you learn that on the fly and through experience. For me, I try to have a lot of one-on-one conversations. So I'll try and get an activity going and pull the student aside where their back is to the activity, but I'm facing the activity. So they can't see what everyone else is doing, but I can still see them, but I can look at them, talk, but also check on everybody else. There are moments where a student and I have to just sit on the floor and have a heart-to-heart. And I get down to some deep stuff. I find things going on in students' life that is no joke. But once I have some of those conversations, I don't have any problems from those students. I mean, and there are students that were pushing buttons and poking and doing anything and everything they could It was like a cry for help. And sometimes just that, that sitting down on the gym floor with them while everyone is doing activity reduces that. I have like certain areas where I have them sit out and watch and then have them think. And I use different verbiage of, you need to have a moment to go sit and think and reflect before we can revisit getting back into PE. I don't say time out. I don't use the phrase time out. I use think, reflect, process your choices. Because I want them to have that language that we struggle with as adults. It might be because of going to therapy. I'm using language that I received in therapy that I try to dumb down, air quote, dumb down, but reduce for students. But I don't use timeout. I try to avoid using the phrase timeout. Students that are heated and hot and upset, I use water as a good cool down. Water is always the magic healer of everything. Injuries, upset, I always use water. And then there's just, if anyone's physical, yelling, screaming to a certain point, that's when I do walkie for an admin. It's rare that I walkie for administrators. I think students know that when I say come here, I don't usually say come here in a yelling, screaming voice. They know if I'm calm, I'm upset. If I say come here, we need to talk, then you've really done something wrong. I use a lot of facial expressions as a parent. So I give, like, if I give the mean eyeballs and the eyebrows, then they know that we've done something. I do the things that were taught in Mason, though. I walk over and I'll stand by a student that's misbehaving because they feel that presence. And then that causes the gym to turn, and it's not looking at them, they're still looking at me teaching, but that change of scenery changes things for a student. So I'll use those things that were taught at Mason, but I try to have one-on-one conversations and pull students out and things like that, water, breather, chat. But I avoid timeout with elementary kids. I don't like timeout. I want them to have different language when I'm doing things. But it's scary when your heart is pounding, especially when they test and I've heard, vulgar language used and your heart is pounding and you're like, what do I do? That's the moment where you take a deep breath before you engage. And then you go, okay, and then blah, 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 we need to talk. You're going to get pushback sometimes. Sometimes the best thing, and you'll learn your students, is the threat of calling admin. And that's when you'll get a kid that's like, no, okay, I'll come over, I'll go. And some kids will just say, I'll go sit down by myself. You'll learn your students. It'll take you a little while, but year in and year out, you'll learn that just putting your hand on your walkie will make a kid walk over. Just the thought of you, as soon as I start going like this, they're like, no, I'm good. I'll go sit. I'll go think. I'll go reflect. And so you'll learn your students, but sometimes you take a deep breath and you'll see yourself get grounded and then you'll go in. But conversations, just start with conversations and put yourself in a position to still see what's going on in the gym. And that's I think the first step to dealing with behavior.
I love that you mentioned not using timeout and using words like think, reflect, and stuff like that, because I think that also helps us as adults too. So like, it's not just going to be like, oh, you're in timeout. It's think, reflect, because they can also use that when they start to grow up too. So I love that. Jarrett, did you want to touch on the discipline?
Yeah, again, it's going to be different for where you're at, what grade you're at. At the elementary level, those are what I used when I was student teaching, and generally they worked pretty good. In fact, I don't ever remember. I mean, student teaching such a short amount of time, but I never remember a story about discipline at all. It's usually pretty good. There are obviously some circumstances now. At Herndon Middle School, I will say that school in itself can be a different animal. But it's still fun. I still enjoy it. I would say that while you're never really supposed to consider yourself friends with the students, you want to get as close as possible with students that you can tell are going to be those special friends through the year. The closer you get to them, the more you have them do stuff for you and talk to them about stuff outside school, the better chance you're going to have of them receiving your instruction better, and the less likely they are to cause those problems. because if they only see you as another figure up there telling them what to do, it's probably not going to bode very well. So I would try to develop those relationships first, as hard as it may seem sometimes, because I've found myself, pissed off quite a few times just because of the situation. And again, what Ashleigh said at one point there is sometimes most important. Even if you're in the middle of something, sometimes it's okay to just sit down for a second and breathe and just close your eyes for 5 seconds and then almost try to restart. You don't ever want to say something or yell too loud or say something that's going to let the class know, okay, he's lost control or she's lost control of the class. You never want to give them that sense. I will say that that you don't, in my case, I try to avoid student removal as well, and I don't like getting admin involved unless I absolutely have to. Now, any kind of fights or something, obviously you have to, because I think there's only a couple people in our building that's supposed to technically physically break up a fight. But if you ever think that situation is going to happen, or have one student that's just constantly nagging and you think that something's going to happen, don't let that one person hold the rest of the class back. So there are times where I have removed a student, especially in health, because they hate sitting there in a desk for 90 minutes. You can try to make it funny with them. You can say, all right, I'm going to need you to leave for a few minutes. Go count the center blocks on the wall. Don't come in until you get the right answer. And if you don't think they're ready, you tell them they got the answer wrong. Tell them to go count it again. That's just something that I use sometimes that works with some, doesn't work with others. Some kids you can send in the hall. You'll go out to check on them a minute later, they're gone. It just depends on the school, depends on the kids. But again, discipline, it's definitely try the stuff at Mason first, but I hate to keep telling you it comes with experience, but certain things work with certain kids and certain things make it worse. So it really, really depends on the age group. Obviously, telling an 8th grader to sit down and to think about their feelings might not work the same as saying that to a 2nd grader. Okay, they might laugh at me, but it all comes down to your student population, your administrator support, your coworker support, and your relationship with the students. The better relationship you have with a student to begin with is definitely going to help with the behavior.
Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely understand that, like, all this definitely comes with more experience. It's really interesting to just hear what you guys both have to say about it all, because there are some things that they don't necessarily touch on in our classes that, especially going into the field, like our professors haven't been in the field like that in a long time. So just seeing like Mason students that have been in the field, I just really appreciate this. I know we're getting close to the end, so I'm going to open it up, Greg, or anyone else. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask, that would be great. If not, I can ask a final questions, or yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, teaching virtually, are you guys pretty much just teaching like fitness, or is there anything that you're doing to incorporate like sports? Because I know it's difficult to like teach soccer online or like basketball online or whatever, because they're team sports. Are you trying to do anything to teach that stuff, or are you mostly focusing on fitness?
Combo. So I did grade them on throwing, but the way I was able to do throwing is you could throw a sock. So they don't have to throw an actual ball. And I had a lot of students throw a sock, but I had students that played baseball or softball, so they went outside with a family member and they threw. So I could still check their throwing cues. We bought at our school bouncy balls and jump ropes, so I was able to still grade jump roping skills K through 5. Because we provided jump ropes, or students already had jump ropes. And those jump ropes I don't anticipate getting back. But you know what? If a student has a jump rope from kindergarten all the way up through 9th grade that they get to play with and exercise with, I think it's worth that our school lost out on that little bit of money for a jump rope. So the bouncy ball means that they can, my partner worked on bounce and catch with the younger kids, but now we have a ball that we can still do some basketball dribbling. Then a kid that actually has a basketball at home, they can go to work. But that ball also can turn into soccer. But for soccer cues, they ball up a sock, and then they can just show me that they can do the cues for soccer. So trying to do as much as we can with regards to that, but it's a lot of fitness. But I'm finding great stuff on YouTube. Like today I'm doing ninja turkey, where a potato pops up and we punch it, and then vegetables pop up and we chop them, and a ninja comes up and we kick it, and then the turkey throws forks at us and we dodge, and a plate comes and we jump, and slice of pie comes and we duck. So it's fun ways to get exercise in this virtual setting. Trying to do as many SOLs as we can. I'm not going to touch most of what we would normally touch in a year, which is already hard to do with how many SOLs we have for K through 5 for health and PE. I don't get to most of it. Even with 2 of us, we don't get to most of it. But still trying to do some of it, because I looked at jump roping. A kindergarten that's never done some sort of jump roping with me is going to be behind as a first grader. And then if we are in person in first grade next year, and I'm trying to grade them on first grade SOLs, but they didn't even do any jump roping as a kindergartner, man, are they super behind. And then their parents are going to be like, why did my kindergartner get an S- or an N in jump roping? And it's like, they didn't even get any jump roping as a kindergartner. So I pushed for that skill to be done, because that's K through 5. That's going to happen every year. So trying to still do as much as we can. I'm avoiding a lot of things. Gymnastics I'm not doing. I don't want a kid rolling around at home. I don't want the liability of that one. I know a lot of teachers are still doing that one. I don't, but I know again, I have students that live in a trailer park. Their space is limited. So I don't want to do that one, knowing the way that some of my students live. I have a lot of students in daycares. I don't want them rolling around at daycare. So that one I'd rather wait until we're fully in person. But that's the nice thing is, in elementary, it's so much up to your discretion. It's you by yourself, or it's you and a co-teacher. You get to decide so much. So I think that's why I love elementary school. We get to decide so much of what we do, and I have fun changing it up every year.
Yeah, that's good. The county's basically changed all of our standards, so a lot of what we're doing is change. It has to be changed anyway. Our first unit was fitness based. Our second unit, which we just finished, was mental health and wellness, which is a health unit. Our third unit that we're supposed to teach now, since they really strongly encourage us now to go by the, whatever it's called, the planning pacing guide or whatever, because they want us all on the same pace. So now we're doing IVP, injury violence prevention. We're doing social media safety now. So I've noticed that it's a lot more health, at least at the middle school level, but at least our first unit was fitness. So we definitely had a lot of fitness stuff in there.
And then Jarrett, you had mentioned like kind of identifying those students who, you know, are going to be leaders in the class, or who are going to, you know, kind of be, you know, up with what you're trying to do in class. On the flip side of that, like, how do you, I hate to put it this way, but like, I feel like as a teacher, you can kind of identify the students who are going to be the opposite of that, give you issues throughout the year, what have you. How do you kind of go about like identifying that, but then also dealing with it, kind of thing?
Behavioral wise, again, try to keep them occupied with whatever you can. If there's something that has to be taken to the office, literally, it sounds like you're trying to get them out of the class, but anything to keep them busy. If there's equipment to be set up, equipment to be taken down, maybe even helping another student, they see that as you putting responsibility and leadership in their hands. And so they're generally, even if they cause problems, or if they are someone that doesn't like to do things, if they get that opportunity, generally they rise to the occasion. For the students that don't necessarily like to participate, there's usually something that they can do that usually a teacher's responsible for, like keeping score of a game, watching schedules if you're doing a round robin type of tournament. There's something that they can do to try to keep them involved or engaged. And if not, just try to make a point to talk to them as much as possible. And I hope that that sort of answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know we're a little bit past time, so I feel like we didn't quite necessarily cover all the questions, but I honestly love all the tips and all the things that you guys shared today. So I'm very, very much so appreciative of both of you for joining us. And if you want to share a couple last minute quick tips, that's up to you. If not, we can go ahead and hop off. So thank you guys again for coming, and I'll just kind of open it up if you want to share a couple last minute tips.
I noticed that one of your things was about parents.
Yes.
So that's going to happen. When you get an email, which right now mine are crazy, take a second before you respond. Your instinct might be able to just, and I feel it. Take a second, reread the email, okay? Sometimes that email comes in and you think it's attacking. Sometimes it is. Reread it, see what it actually says, and then go into it. And then sometimes some emails, it's okay to pass that email on to your principal. It's past you. If a parent really comes in hot and has gone past a certain point, if your principal has built up a certain relationship with the staff, it's okay to pass the buck and say, this has gone too far. And we've had a couple of those this year of this is on you, buddy. And he's taken it. But take your time with a parent email, read it. And my team is amazing. We will get each other's opinions before we send an email on if it's a big one. So if you have great teammates, do that. You know, hey, I'm about to send this email to a parent. Can one of you guys read this before I send this? But take a deep breath before you respond. Double check your grammar, what you're trying to say. But they're gonna come at you sometimes, and they're gonna do it not always having the truth. And it's okay to professionally say what the truth is. So I just wanted to cover that because I know that that's going to happen, and Mason doesn't prepare you for that.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you touching on that. That was something that I added because Mason doesn't touch on that. So it's like, how am I supposed to know what to say to a parent when they don't agree with what I'm doing? Or, yeah. So thank you so much for touching on that.
And I would say do emails. I know phone calls sometimes maybe seem easier, but an email gives a paper trail.
Right.
So a year later, when you still have that student and it comes up again and your principal goes, hey, what's up with this? You can go, oh no, here are all the emails that we had last year of the same issue. There you go. And then they go, okay, I've got the ammo I need. So phone calls may seem quick, but emails, you have a paper trail.
Right. Gotcha. All right. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate this. I know I've said that a lot, but I really do. Yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will be sharing this recording to the people that weren't able to make it. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the day and a great
Can I say one thing real quick, Jessica?
Yeah, of course, Greg.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Jessica said. I really appreciate you two coming. I think that one of the things that you guys kept on like touching on is that like it's okay to kind of not know what to do sometimes. You know what I mean? It's okay to accept that like you're not always going to have the answers and stuff like that. And I think that like sometimes when you know, go through a program like the one at Mason, like you can kind of get the idea of like, oh, I know how I would handle that. Oh, that's, you know, I know what I'm going to do and stuff like that. And even like I had that idea and then I substitute taught for the first time and I was like, I got a ways to go. You know what I mean? So it's really awesome hearing two people who are in the arena and actually doing it, like say it's, you know, it's okay to fail. Just it's about like, you know, learning from your mistakes and stuff. And I can't, you know, verbalize how appreciative I am of you two coming in and sharing that. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. And you're going to make mistakes every day. We all do. And like I said, today was the first day. Prince William County had in-person kindergarten, and you want to talk about people looking at each other and going, what in the world? Kindergarten teachers, all the Encore teachers, and we all were like, I don't know what just happened. And you're talking about people that have been teaching forever. Okay. Mistakes, failure. And it's gonna happen. And you know what? You're gonna make stuff up on the fly too. And that's okay. I have done that so many times. I've had lessons planned to a T and then been like, this is what we're gonna do. And you know what? It's okay. And no one's gonna say anything to you. So you guys are gonna be great. Okay.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much again. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.